All right, so we've been working on addition and subtraction with real numbers. Today we're working on multiplication and division. And what that really means is we need to examine the properties that go along with multiplication and division. And once you understand that, you can multiply and divide pretty simply. First of all, we'll start with the identity property. The identity property we talked about already just says that any quantity times 1 gives you that same quantity. So if we had -5, and we multiplied it by 1, we would still have -5. The same thing holds true to a variable expression. So say we had xy. If we multiplied that times 1, we would still have xy. Okay, pretty simple idea. Yeah, So the next property we need to talk about is the multiplication property of 0. And just like it sounds, anytime you multiply by 0, you get a specific result. And if you had 5 and you multiply it by 0, you get 0. If you had 2xy cubed and you multiplied it by 0, you would get 0. It doesn't matter if it's a numeric quantity or an algebraic quantity. Now, this next property is one you haven't heard before, but I think it'll make logically a lot of sense. The multiplication property of -1. So let's think about this. If we had the quantity of 7 and we multiplied it times -1, the result is -7. Well, what do you think that property says? Well, let's say we had -10 and we multiplied it by -1. The result would be 10. So what do you notice? Well, the number that we multiplied times -1 gave us a product that was the opposite of what we started with. So if we started with -10 and we multiplied it times -1, we end up with the opposite of -10, which is +1. This will also hold true with variables. If we had the quantity of 2z and we multiplied it times -1, we would get -2z. So now, rather than talking about properties, we're going to talk about some multiplication rules, which are a little different. It just basically thinking about the signs of the factors when you are multiplying. So if you multiply two numbers with the same sign, 2 times 5, both are positive quantities, you get a positive result. What if it were -2 times -5? Well, a negative times a negative would also give you a positive result. It doesn't matter if they're both positive, both negative, the result, the product will be positive. So what does that mean then for different signs? So say one factor was positive or negative and the other factor were positive. So now we have -3 repeated twice. That's what -3 times 2 means. -3 and -3 would give you -6. So now we have a negative times a positive giving us a negative. Same thing holds true with variables. Let's say we had a positive x, but a negative y. The whole thing would be negative. So now we could take what we just talked about with multiplication and sort of do the inverse to get the division result. So what happens if we divide two numbers with the same sign? So say we did 10 divided by 2. A positive divided by a positive gives us a quotient that is also positive. But what if they were both negative? -10 divided by -2 would also give you a +5 result. So then what does that mean for different signs? What if we had -12 divided by a +4? Well, if you took -12 and broke it into 4 equal groups, how much would be in each group? -3. So we have a negative divided by a positive giving us a negative. And you can always check this by doing multiplication in reverse, right? -3 times 4 does give you -12. And again, the same thing holds true with variables, that whenever we have two different signs involved in division, the result will be negative. All right, one last multiplication property we need to talk about is the inverse property of multiplication. Now, this is something that has never been named like this for you, but is a concept that you understand. I want to know, if I start with 5, what I would need to multiply that by in order to get a product of 1. Well, this number that we have to multiply by is called the multiplicative inverse of our first factor. So 5 times 1/5 is equal to 1. That is also the definition of a reciprocal. And that is a term you have heard before. So when you multiply any number by its reciprocal, you get a quantity of 1. So say we started with 3/4. Let's say negative 3/4. And we want to know, what do we have to multiply that by to get to 1? Well, the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3, and we know that a negative times another negative would give us a positive. So it would have to be negative 4/3. That is considered the reciprocal of this first factor, or its multiplicative inverse. I have a hard time saying that. I'll just tell you right now. So that is today's lesson. Make sure that you do the problems and check your work, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.